May 22nd, 2020, and we're here for a special call meeting of the Ottawa City Commission. And I'd ask our Assistant City Clerk to read the opening disclosure. Jimmy?
This is Misty Kems, Assistant City Clerk speaking, and I will be providing information for remote access to tonight's meeting, as well as procedural guidelines that will be followed for this meeting. Due to social distancing and the prohibition of the gathering of 10 or more people to mitigate the spread of COVID-19, physical access to the City Commission meeting will be restricted. In accordance with Kansas Open Meetings Act, the meeting can be viewed live on Channel 23 and via Facebook Live, or listened to by dialing 312-626-6799 and entering the meeting ID code 945-9417-3327#. That information can be found at the top of today's agenda. Guidelines for this meeting are as follows. Each member of the public, staff, or presenter is required to state the individual's name and title, if any, each time the individuals begin speaking or voting, so that the individual can be identified by remote listeners or observers. Citizens that submitted comments by 10 a.m. today to public comments at ottawaks.gov were given to the City Commission to be read during public comment or during discussion on an agenda item. The Commission must describe at the beginning of the meeting the process that will be used for a closed or executive meeting pursuant to KSA 75-4319 and amendments thereto.
Good, thank you. I think you just read the biggest part of this meeting. Now, would you please call the roll?
Sorry, I muted myself. Mayor Wygand.
Here.
Commissioner Kaler.
She's muted.
Oh,
sorry, I have to unmute. Present.
Commissioner Crowley.
Present.
Commissioner Skidmore.
Present.
And Commissioner Jorgensen.
Present.
Okay, all commissioners present, and welcome everyone and anyone who has tuned in and are on the telephone to this session. We have a consent agenda. Is there a motion to approve the agenda as presented? Do we need that?
Commissioner Skidmore, I'll make the motion that we approve the agenda as presented.
There's a second?
Commissioner Crowley, I'll second.
Okay, it's moved and seconded. Any discussion? There being none, all in favor, say aye.
Aye.
All opposed? Motion carries unanimously. Item 5, do we have any public comments? I guess, do we do that now, I guess, before we open the hearing?
There were no comments.
There are none? Okay. We'll dispense with reading that. Item 6 is the declaration. At this time, I'd like to give the commissioners a chance to declare any conflict or communication they've had that might influence their ability to consider today's issues impartially. Hearing none, we will move to new business. Misty, you want to read that?
To hold a public hearing on the proposed new Cdbg grant, Community Development Block Grant.
And Wendy or Susan Gallimore will talk to us about the reason for this hearing.
Mr. Mayor, this is Wendy Lee, Director of Community Development. I'll start. I think it's appropriate for the public's sake to restate again what the grant is for and a little bit about it. So Ottawa's proposal is to apply for $300,000 for the Cdbg CV, meaning COVID, grants that the Department of Commerce has opened up. We are applying for two kinds of grants within that, or both categories that are eligible in the economic development category of micro grants.
I think this will work here.
Should I keep going? I can hear some.
We're getting some feedback from somewhere. Someone got a radio on?
It's because I'm in a restaurant, because it's the only place I can be that has good signal.
Okay,
Wendy
go ahead.
is
I
in a
might-
freaking restaurant
Mr.
trying to do
Mayor,
his Zoom
I might suggest this to
meeting.
everybody.
We've dropped the
If
call.
you're not talking, it helps to
times.
go ahead and mute.
I'll see if I can get somewhere better. Okay, so there were two categories within our grant application. Sorry. One, the first category where we have the majority of the funds that we would be, we think would be requested would be for micro grants, which are for businesses that have 5 and fewer employees. And then we anticipated that we would have up to 10 micro grants applied for. So for about $250,000 of the $300,000 request. And then we would have possibly one larger economic development grant, which would be for businesses between 6 and 50 employees. In all cases, the positions that are retained are important, and the funds would be for working capital. For a business to qualify, they would have to have 51% or more of their employees that are from low to moderate income households. We believe that with those numbers, the 250 and the 50, we would be able to potentially retain 10 LMI positions in the micro grant awards, with 4 LMI positions in the larger businesses. The total project benefits then would be 27 jobs retained, with 14, that's the minimum out of that would be for low to moderate income household employees. This is similar if folks have been watching us use our own local revolving loan fund. Similar kinds of things would be done in order to process those applications, but we would not retain the funds locally. These would be funds that would be drawn down as invoices are prepared, and assuming that we have funded out all of our funds, which we think we can have done. And then Susan Gailmore with the Southeast Regional Planning Commission, we would anticipate as our consultants working with all of our projects and ensuring that all of our paperwork with the state, our relationship, our contract with the state is according to all the regulations that they're requiring. So that's kind of a brief summary. I'm happy to answer questions. I don't know if Susan wants to add anything. Our intent is, as soon as the hearing's concluded, if there are modifications to the plan, then we can make those. But as soon as we've done that and concluded the hearing, we would submit our grant proposal. The funds are on a first come, first served basis. And it would take at least 2 weeks before we could even know if we've been awarded the funds. Susan is on the call. I don't know if she wants to add anything.
I think you covered it really well, Wendy. I don't think there's really anything else to add unless they have questions.
Okay, this is for the $300,000 grant. So let's open the public hearing at 1:09 this morning. Is there anyone who wants to speak to this on the line or on the call?
Mr. Mayor, this is John Coe, Chamber of Commerce. I'd just like to speak in favor of all this. This is a great way to provide an opportunity in our community to not only inject some dollars, but also help some of the businesses that are struggling. I think this is a great deal. I appreciate the time and effort that the city staff has put into it, and the commission, and I would like to just speak in favor of this.
Thank you, John Cohen. Anyone else want to speak in this regard?
Commissioner Skidmore, I do have, I guess, a question. I want to make sure I got the certain. It is strictly just for people within the city limits of Ottawa, and also for those that are hearing and want to apply. how do they get a hold of someone and find out the parameters and the restrictions on this?
This is Wendy Lee, Director of Community Development. Yes, we should probably clarify the funds would come from the state, and they would be grant funds. And if they want the parameters that they need to go ahead and email me, I can give them the low to moderate income checklist form that they could even start doing their survey of their employees well ahead. Now, we won't even know if we've been awarded the funds for 2 weeks, but if they want to get started on the paperwork that they would have to do, that's the piece that is most key, is the low to moderate income checklist that they would have each employee complete.
This is Mayor Tom Wygant. I got a question in regards to that. I don't recall talking about this, but will there be guidelines on the grant, like limits of dollars, 20,000, 50,000, 100,000? What can you apply for?
So Susan, make sure I don't misstate this, but if you're in the micro loan category, so the 5 and fewer, you can apply for up to 25,000. And then if you're in the larger employee category, it's up to, I believe, 35,000. Is that right, Susan?
That's correct. They've got a maximum on the business as well. So that's per job retained. So it's 25,000 per job retained with a maximum per company of 30,000 in the micro category. And then the 35,000 per job retained with a maximum of 50,000 per company in the regular category. Those are the maximums. You have the ability, if you wanted to, at the local level, to adjust that down if you wanted to spread the money around.
Okay. I'm wondering about the use. They can be used for operating, rent, utilities, anything to keep the employees there and keep the business open, as well as salaries.
That is correct, Mayor. This is Wendy Lee, Director of Community Development again, but they cannot use the same category if they happen to have gotten the PPP funds, and let's say those funds they used payroll, then they wouldn't use these funds could not be used for payroll. They would be for inventory, utilities, things as you mentioned. So there are some specifics that we would talk to any individual business about to be sure that we have a good clarity about what would be eligible to be sure that they could exhaust the funds. We certainly wouldn't want to have saved aside or set aside funds for someone and then discover they can really only take advantage of half of that. And meanwhile, we've had other businesses close. So we do our very best to work through that at the beginning with any of them.
Mr. Mayor.
Thank you.
Mr.
Yes.
Mayor, Richard Nines, City Manager, for everyone on this call and our citizens that are listening, one of the other stipulations are it is only for expenses incurred after March 1st.
Oh, and Mr. Mayor, this is Wendy Lee with the Director of Community Development again. So Commissioner Skidmore sort of asked, and I failed to address it. These funds would be for businesses within the city limits, but the county has also applied for funds. And so that would be something that if someone happens to be listening to our hearing, but their business is in another community in our county or outside our jurisdiction, they would want to, if the county is awarded funds, they'd want to make their application there.
Mr. Mayor.
Okay. Yes.
Commissioner Jorgensen, and I had realized, Wendy, that you're traveling right now, but and I've sent several folks to the community development office. And I think on Wednesday, our existing Cdbg money was down to about 125,000 in funds or thereabouts. Have we received any more applications for our existing grant program?
So Commissioner, this is Wendy Lee, Director of Community Development. What we had intended with the committee and what I had put in my memo to all of you in advance of that meeting on Wednesday was that we would do a first come, first serve because we were converting from loans to grants starting June 8th so that we had time to market the funds and make sure that people had a fair shake at getting their applications together. Nonetheless, some people have contacted us. We are sending them again, like these forms, so that they can start understanding the low to moderate income part, because you wouldn't want to wait and supply a grant and think that that was your only option, only to find out you didn't have the right count of your employees to begin with, or if you were a sole proprietor, that you weren't eligible. We do want to share that information out. But we haven't actually started the time clock on those grants, but we have had some people approach us, yes.
Okay, I guess my question was, there was a requirement that we draw down our present funds to about $10,000. And
right.
And I assume we're continuing to receive applications for our existing grant
so
fund.
We have 90 days after grant award to draw them down. 90 days after grant award. So 90 days after, at least 2 to 3 weeks from now.
Yeah.
So I don't think we'll have any difficulty getting the funds down, because yes, people are, as we had discussed on Wednesday, we believe there is some loan fatigue. So the opportunity to have grant funds and not have to borrow and pay back and do interest, we believe will enable us to successfully get those funds taken care of fairly quickly. We don't think it'll take us the 90 days, for example. I don't think it'll take that long.
This is Commissioner Taylor. I wish that we would consider possibly not waiting until June 8th. That is 3 weeks to people who have, and so many of our businesses have tremendous pride in what they're doing. And if they're coming to ask for help, they must really need help. And so I really wish we wouldn't wait 3 weeks.
I'm sure we can take all that under advisement. But the whole point originally from the committee was to get all the advertising out and all of that. And we'll certainly seek to do what we can to be as responsive as we can. But we did want to have a date certain. And frankly, until Wednesday, we weren't even certain if you all would agree to the grant. So we really couldn't advance all of that until that point. But we'll do our best to get the information out. And certainly if we can move up the date, then we'll put that on our marketing materials and so that we can be fair as possible.
But if someone hearing this this afternoon could come in this afternoon, make application and receive the funds before the 10th of June, I would think. Not?
That's not how we had presented it on Wednesday, and because we wanted to revise the application a little bit because it speaks to the loans. We have to revise all of the agreements because it speaks to payments and interest and all of that. So what we were doing was, or at this point have sent out a few of the packets that describe the current loan program, but to change it to a grant isn't just a matter of a couple of clicks. And so we wanted to say at a date. Now we may be able to do that next week and then go through the process. But we were also, if you recall from Wednesday, trying to convert all the current loans we have, and there's 5 of them, from loans to grants, which also takes a little bit of time. And so it was just a matter of trying to pick a date. We talked about next week, but then felt like with the holiday that might cause problems for even the applicants. So we'll sure do our best on Monday to revisit with all of our committee members and see what we can do. But that, as you probably recall, is off topic from the application.
Okay, 3 weeks is a long time to go without money. Any other comments, questions, any call yet? Any other comments, questions? Any other comments? I will close this hearing then at 1:19. Okay, now we do. Is that all we do? We vote on that on moving forward, or that's it for today?
So that's all that you have to do at this point. We already uploaded all the documents that you passed on Wednesday. And so all I really have to do at this point is if you all are willing to close and you've closed it and you conclude the meeting, then I will go and submit our application. Unless you had substantive changes to how we anticipated doing micro loans and larger business loans, or wanted to cap numbers, anything that might change the application. Otherwise, it would go in as I've drafted and provided the material to you previously.
Okay. I would just go with Commissioner Kaler as far as if we can get that grant and get the paperwork done, everything done as soon as possible, be great. With that comment, I will adjourn the meeting. Have a great weekend.